Hello VCEers! We're changing gear a bit here. In this video, we're looking at the role of the United Nations in providing global health and sustainable development. The United Nations was formed in 1945, following the Second World War. It presently has 193 member states from all over the world and aims to aid international cooperation to address global issues such as peace, climate change, human rights adherence, terrorism, the Millennium Development Goals, food security, and so on. The UN acts as a forum where member states can have their voices heard. The UN also promotes health and human development through its many branches, such as the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, UNICEF, and the World Health Organization. As such, it plays an important role in providing global health and sustainable development. The UN has 4 main areas of action that we need to know about: world peace and security, human rights, humanitarian assistance, and social and economic development. World peace and security has 4 aspects: disarmament, which is essentially conflict prevention, peacemaking, peacekeeping and enforcement, and peace building. As you can see, there is an emphasis on peace. Essentially, the UN is trying to prevent wars, and if that's not possible, to limit them. This might involve the UN sending in peacekeepers to war-torn countries or areas of conflict in order to offer mediation services. In world peace and security, the UN also aims to offer support to governments in an attempt to rebuild after conflict. The UN also fights for the protection of human rights, especially those of the most vulnerable. This is exemplified by documents such as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but is also intertwined with something that we have looked at in some depth during the year: the Millennium Development Goals. A big part of this is focusing on education. The third action area of the UN is humanitarian assistance. As we know, the United Nations can act as a third party in multilateral aid. That is, various countries can give resources to the UN, who then distributes those resources to those in need. An example of this is the World Food Programme. Again, the UN seeks to protect those most vulnerable. For example, they might work with refugees who have recently been displaced. The last action area is social and economic development. This action area also ties in nicely with the Millennium Development Goals, as many of the MDGs are directly linked to social and/or economic development. Social and economic development attempts to promote higher standards of living and employment for all. So by using these 4 action areas, the United Nations can fulfill its role in providing global health and sustainable development. Let's now try to answer a question on the United Nations. Here is a nice one from the 2013 VCAR exam. In the first question, we need to list 2 examples of how the UN promotes world peace and security. Earlier in this video, we said that there are 4 aspects of world peace and security: disarmament, peacemaking, peacekeeping and enforcement, and peace building. So any combination of 2 from these 4 options will do. In the second question, we need to elaborate on one of our responses by explaining how that aspect could contribute to an improvement in health status. Let's take our first answer of disarmament. To get the 2 marks, we should first explain the impact of disarmament, and then link that specifically to health status. So we could say, disarmament aims to prevent disputes turning into large-scale conflict. This is likely to result in the avoidance of the negative effects of conflict, such as war casualties, malnutrition, and displacement. Without disarmament, conflict may be more likely. Subsequently, war casualties, malnutrition, and displacement would be more likely. This would have a negative effect on health status because, for example, the prevalence of communicable disease would be higher and life expectancy lower. Bye for now, and happy studying!